Hi everybody, my name is Dena, and I'm a mentor with STEM Leagues, and today we're going to give you a little coding break, and if you'd like to, this is completely optional, but you could play around with a design tool called Figma, and Figma is something we use a lot in industry to design and prototype things, so it'd be really fun for you to learn and just play around with. So hopefully by the end of this, you have an idea on how to create like a 2-page flow if you were, say, designing an app or a web page. So it's just some quick tips and things that hopefully you might find exciting and interesting to play around with. So let's get started. So basically when you log into Figma, you're going to be taken to a page, and this is like where all your projects are. And to add a new project, you click the plus button. So you click plus for a new file. So you would do that. I'm just going to go ahead and just open up a file that I've already used just to show you step by step how to get through this process. So just a quick overview of what Figma is. Figma is a design tool, and as you can see, I have 2 artboards right now that are iPhone 8, and each frame is different in the sense that if I were to go to this little thing over here and put frame, I have a list of tablets, desktop, different types of phones that you could use to design and prototype on. So whatever you feel like you want to try, go ahead and use it. But for now, I'm just going to stick with an iPhone 8. So we're going to do that here. Cool. So now we have our first artboard. You could add squares or rectangles or arrows or shapes. So this is a shape tool. So any shape you want to add, say let's like add a rectangle. I've added a rectangle here. You could customize the width and height right here. So, or you could just play around with it using your mouse. Either way works. You could also add images, which I'll show you how to do later. And the pen tool. The pen tool gives you some like vector shapes, and it really gives you more customization and flexibility than these types of shapes over here. So that's just a couple things that you could do. You could also add text. Let's say this is some text. You might have to zoom in to see it, or you could change the size of the text, just so people are aware. To zoom in. So there's like a lot of different things that you could do. Another thing to note is that anything you select has its own kind of design menu. So if it's a text, you're able to change where the text is placed with the paragraph, like text align left, text align right, center, like the things that you've learned maybe in the web dev track. You could change the font choice, you can change the font size and the type as well. So there's lots of things you could do depending on what you're designing for or designing with. So we're going to start designing the home page, and I ended up using a background image. You don't have to use a background image, you could use colors. And to change the color of the background, you just have to select the artboard, go to fill, and then change the color. And you could just play around with the colors that you want and just see what colors you like. You could type in a hex code. You can play around with the transparency. You can even use an eyedropper tool, and whatever on the page, you could use that color instead. Totally up to you. But for this case, we're just going to stick to just a white background because I'm just going to place an image. So before we place an image, I just want to give you an idea of what kind of images you might want to look for. And if you don't have any photographs that you want to use, you could go ahead and use photographs from the internet. I like to use a website called Unsplash. Unsplash is high quality photos. People upload them. So you could really search for anything. So here are cats, you can do dogs. The app choice I did with cactus, so I ended up using cacti. But just something to keep in mind that these images are from other people, and it's always good to give credit of the images you end up using. That's just a good practice to have. But for now, it's totally okay because you're just practicing. And to download images from here, you just select here and you click download. Be careful with things that you download online. Unsplash is safe for the most part. I use it often. And if you have photos that you'd rather use on your own, use that instead. Or like I said, you could always just play around with colors. And I could try to link some photos as well. So now that you just know of places you can get photos, let's try to place one. So placing an image falls under shape tools. So we're going to select place image. And I have the image saved on my desktop, so I'm just going to select that. And then I'm going to place it. So I recommend placing it outside of the artboard and then adjusting it. Usually if you place it on the artboard, things get a little messy. So place it outside the whiteboard, move it around. See, now I got stuck on the artboard. So I'm going to have to size it, move it, and then adjust the size of the image and just scale it down so that it crops to this. So I like this. I'm just going to call this good for now, but you could keep adjusting it to how you want it or how you envision it. And you also don't have to use a photo, but if you were to use a photo, place it outside the artboard, adjust the size so it fits the artboard, and then you could go from there. Cool, so now that we have the image placed, I want to add a button. So to do that, I want to add a button on the bottom of the page just to indicate like the login. So to do that, I'm going to use a square or a rectangle. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And because I want it to go through the entire like bottom portion, then I need to stretch it out so it's a rectangle. So I'm just gonna do that. And make it a little bit bigger. Cool. So now I have a rectangle on the bottom of the page that can act like a button or look like a button. So I could leave it as is right now, but it just doesn't fit the scheme of the page itself. I feel like I should make this button colorful. I should add a color to it. So I'm going to select it, go to fill, and select a color. You could choose whatever color you would like, whatever color fits the idea of your design. I'm just going to go ahead and use the eyedropper tool and select this color up here, just because I know how it looks like. Okay, cool. So now I have this rectangle. But now I should add some text so it signifies that this is a login page. So I'm going to go to the text box, type in text, and then select login. So now I have some text, and I'm going to move it around and try to center it. So now I have some text that says login, but the contrast isn't that great. Black on dark green, you could hardly like see the text and it's not very legible. So in terms of contrast, I would either darken the background or lighten the text color. So I'm just gonna lighten the text color. I'm gonna select it. I'm gonna go to fill and I'm gonna change it to white. So now I have that contrast. Now I could read the login on the dark background. Cool, yay, button, that's awesome. So I would say we're almost done. I just want to add a title to my application or design that I'm doing it. So let's just say I'm designing an app for you to take care of your cactus plant. And I'm going to name this app Spiky. So I'm going to go to the text box. I'm going to put the text right there, zoom in, and type Spiky. Period. Cool. So the placement of this is weird, so I'm just going to move it around, move it down here. I also feel like it's too small, so I'm just going to make it bigger. So let's make it a size 64. Cool. And I think I'm just going to make it white just so it's similar to the login. I don't want too many colors at once, so maybe keeping the color scheme to like a white and green, would just kind of make the design more cohesive. Cool. So we're just gonna leave that there. I might move it up, might move it down. But that's the title page. or the login page, the home screen, whatever you choose to call it. So now I want to make this screen right here. So I'm going to add a whiteboard. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste that. So, because you already know how to place an image. So I'm just going to add a whiteboard or an artboard, iPhone 8. So we go to artboard, iPhone 8. And we're going to go through the place image process again. So I have this image and I'm going to place it. Let me work on sizing first. Cool. So I have placed my second image that I like. So we're going to go ahead and work on all of the rest of the stuff on there. So I like the idea of having a little accent period here. And since I know what color my background for the second screen is, I might just go ahead for fun, make that period, use the eyedropper tool and make it just a yellow, just so it's like fun and similar to the second screen. Just because the second screen doesn't have a lot of the dark green yet, it'd be really cool to be able to have all the colors across my pages. So let's start off by making the little input text field. So where somebody writes their email, address, and then their password. So to get this rounded submit button, I like to use the rectangle tool, and then kind of customizing the rectangle tool so it kind of becomes rounded. So let's first figure out how to make it transparent and have the outline. So what you could do to make something transparent is you could add stroke. So we're just going to use this black stroke. Actually, to make it cohesive, we're just going to use the stroke of the screen right here. You can choose black, whatever color you want. But to add a stroke, you click the plus button, and then the stroke should appear. So this is how it looks. The rectangle looks like with a stroke. You can get rid of the fill by hitting the minus button. So as soon as you click plus on something, it'll appear, and if you click minus, it will disappear. So you could remove the fill from that. So now we have this this rectangle, and I want to have rounded corners. So if you select it and you go kind of to this design menu over here, you can see the X and Y positioning, the width and the height, and then the rounded corners. So the X and the Y is the position where it's at on the artboard. The width and the height is the position of the rectangle itself. So the rectangle itself is 224 by 48, and then the X and Y position is where it's situated on the artboard. So I'm just going to add a rounded corner of 50. I think 50 brings a nice, round towards the edge. And I want to make it bigger. Let's see, this dimension is 255 by 50. So I'm just going to change this dimension to be 255 by 50. And a lot of this is just like playing around with the sizing and see what's right for you and what you think looks good. So I'm just going to move it down here. Cool. So now we have our first input field. I want to type in text. So I'm going to type in text. I'm going to say email. This text is really large, so we're going to make it light, and we're going to move the text size down to maybe like a 13. Because I want it to be inside the input field. So that's a little too small. So we're going to make it 14 instead. How about there? Yeah. Email, Cool. Okay, so now that we have the email, I want to make a second input field that's for password. So I could go through the design process again, or I could select both of these and copy and paste it. That's usually the easiest thing to do because then you don't have to worry about resizing everything. And I want this to be where the user inputs their password. So now we have two input fields, email, password. I want to make a button now that says sign in, just so once you've inputted, you have a place to like submit or sign in. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go to the rectangle tool again. We're going to draw a rectangle underneath. I want to be the same dimensions as the ones above. So that's going to be 255 by 50. It's going to have 50 rounded corners. And I want this button to be the color of this login button, just because in terms of like call to action buttons, you want something that leads a user to do something or to a different page to be kind of obvious. And those are called call to actions. So we're just going to go ahead and use the eyedropper tool and make it cohesive. So you have email, password, and I'm just going to use the exact same text size as the login. So I'm just going to call it sign in. And that way you could kind of see the cohesiveness across both pages. I'm going to work on centering. So the nice thing about Figma too is if you want to center something, it'll give you guidelines while you move things around. Let's capitalize everything. Yay, okay, so awesome. I now have I have a button and I have some text input forms, but I want to add this "It's so good to see you" text just for fun. In fact, it's probably a good idea in terms of cohesiveness to make that text dark as well. But to add that text, you just click text over here. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this. It's so good to see you. Just kind of like as an intro. I want to move all this up. And maybe this isn't very good color contrast, so maybe I can go ahead and change the fill of that color to "It's so good to see you." And I want to add a back arrow, so I might do that as well. And just kind of add a back arrow to the nav page. So you could adjust this. You could make it a little bit thicker by adjusting stroke. So we can do like 4. So you get to play around with like a lot of different things. Cool. So now I have 2 different pages. One is like the home screen to log in, and then the next is like the sign-in page. And I might just adjust this to a place where I might like it more. So I might move this down. And have something that looks like this. So now I have 2 pages. And then to link things in a prototype, you could go to the prototype page right here. And once you just select prototype, you could scroll over to some designs. So as you can see here, I have a prototype where it starts here and ends here. And then you have this login going to this page and this back button going to this page. So it's basically just kind of like the flow or the interaction design information architecture of what's going on if a user were to click this button. So if I were to click the login page, I want to take it to this next page. And if I click the back button, I would want to go to this page. So it's really nice to be able to see it go from one page to the next and back and forth. And that's just something you get to play around with if you would like to. Prototyping is kind of fun, just to be able to see your design. But this play button is like the starting point of your design. So I want to start out on the new iteration that I just made. And then I want to click preview or present. And if you click preview and present, this will pop up, and then I select login, and it's so good to see you, email, password, sign in, and then you get to go back. So that is how you design in Figma. There's a lot of learning curves in Figma, and it involves a lot of practice. I myself am learning a lot more all the time. So it's just really good to just go ahead and explore, play around with things, and just kind of get creative. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm excited to see everybody's creativity, but keep up the good work. You guys are all doing awesome.